do those notes red?
Would that be more difficult? That'd mix in with the carpet.
That red, that yellow, that black.
Right.
And do that blue for the moment. Although I wonder if I should just do that red.
Which?
The dog. But do you think it's possible?
Well, it's going to come in with the blue quite a lot.
All right, do it blue.
Yeah.
Hockney dyes his hair yellow and wears gig lamps. A treat, really, since these days painters tend to look like anyone else. But while he was still at the Royal College, he began to have a sort of success that set him apart. Hockney's eye saw in a different way, but his pictures were so complete, so finished, in the good sense of both words, that even those who didn't like them could see what was puzzling them.
I think that'll be a bit difficult.
No. What, the yellow?
Yeah.
Why, going to the red?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it goes in a bit, does it?
Hockney was born and brought up in Bradford, where his parents still live, and at school he was always top at art, except once, when he was second. He didn't leave Bradford until he was 18, but there's no doubt about it, the brighter, brasher world outside was entirely to his taste. First London, then New York, but above all California, where the hot blue skies, the swimming pools, the palm trees and the sexuality were changed in his imagination to an iconography. The poems of Cavafy have been a source for Hockney, so also of Grimm's fairy tales, and a poem by Wallace Stevens, itself drawing on a picture by Picasso, lies behind the etchings he's now working on.
The source of a lot of pictures and a lot of ideas and things I do come from literature. That I freely admit. It's not true in all cases. Sometimes it's a purely visual feeling. I mean, the source was just something you see with the eyes and you're excited about and think, I must do something with that. But especially in the graphic work, the source all the time, I think, has been mostly literary.
In your earlier pictures, you actually wrote on them.
Yes.
Why did you do that?
Well, I originally wrote on them because I wanted... It was simply a problem of... I wanted to make modern pictures. Anybody who was painting, you want to make modern pictures. And at the time, this was 12 years ago, I had for 6 months painted abstract pictures. It's the only time in my painting where I painted purely abstract pictures. But I got a bit bored doing it, and I wanted to make them a little more precise. And I daredn't put figures in. I thought that was not modern. You couldn't do that, really. But if you put a word in a way it has the same effect as a human being. The moment you put a human being in a picture, it's different. It's not just shapes. It's not just volume. Cézanne's dictum is not true, that people are just spheres, cones and cylinders. They are, but they're a lot more than that, we all know. And it was the presence of a word in a picture, you immediately read it. Also, I then found out that even if there wasn't a word in the picture, you tended to look at it from left to right. I discovered that, and I mean, I still think it's true. You still work from left to right in paintings as you do in a book. I don't know what they do in Japan. I mean, maybe the Japanese, it never occurred to me, maybe they do it the other way. But that was the reason I wanted words, and it was precision, really precision.
Who were the painters you liked well before you became, as it were, a real painter yourself?
I remember Piero della Francesca from a book when I was 8 years old, I remember. That picture, I've got it on the wall still there. You see these things and you think, oh, I want to do that. And you start doing it, and sometimes I think it's a mad thing to do it. About 4 days ago, I was sat in here with a friend of mine looking at the pictures thinking, maybe this is a crazy thing for a 40-year-old person to want to do. I mean, you know, you can detach yourself occasionally, but I couldn't think of anything else I'd do if I didn't make pictures. The still image has a great amount of power. You can do things with it. You can tell people a great deal in a still image. It's wonderful form of communicating, and I think you begin to realize this, and that's why people want to draw. It's why people want to make pictures. They will always want to make pictures. I think it's a very, very natural thing to want to do.
You were talking about your childhood in Bradford. Just incidentally, I don't know how incidental it may be, I see this book was printed in Bradford. Anyone you knew?
I just left, when I left the grammar school in Bradford, my mother said, oh, well, you should get a job, really, and I wanted to go to the art school. And I went round a lot of advertising agencies in Leeds and Bradford. Eventually I went to Lund Humphreys, the printers in Bradford, to get a job, and they said to me, oh, well, what you really should do is go to the art school for a little while. So I thought, well, that's really what I wanted to hear. And so I went home and said to my mum, well, they said I must go to the art school for a year or two. And so that was my way of getting into the art school. So I'm grateful to Lund Humphreys, and they remembered this, and so they asked Thames and Hudson if they could print the book. And
you've got jolly good school reports in this book, because a couple of them are reproduced here.
Yes, well, I didn't know he was going to do that. He got those from my mother when I was in America. He wrote to her asking for old photographs, and naturally she dug out everything and sent them to him, so he reproduced them.
Did you find London exciting when you got there, or frightening at all, or weird, or what?
Well, when I first came to London, I thought it was wonderful. I mean, after Bradford, of course, it was wonderful. And my first days at the Royal College of Art, I thought it was fabulous. And I assumed, for instance, all the students would be really good and much better than I was. And the more they looked like artists, the better I thought. You know, if the bigger the beard, I thought, oh, they must be really fantastic artists. And if they'd studied at London art schools, I'm like, oh, they've had a chance to look at the National Gallery and the Tate Gallery. They know more about pictures because they've seen them all. I mean, I suppose anybody from provincial England would think that. But you realise it's not true after a while, because I would look around and think, well, maybe they don't know any more than I know, but that's the feeling.
Any one in particular of the students seemed to influence you?
Yes, I say in the book, a friend of mine called Ron Kitari he was older than I. He was about 3 or 4 years older than I am, which when you're 22, it makes quite a bit of difference. Actually, it was Ron suggested, he said, why don't you paint the subjects you're interested in? I would talk to him, say, about literature, about politics, and about at the time I was a keen vegetarian. He said, there's your subjects. And of course, I thought, well, that's what I'll do. And immediately, because they were subjects one felt a little passion about, of course, things happen that don't happen if you're not passionate. And then I began to realize, yes, I am painting. It is me. I am painting. I am doing the right thing now. You're finding a path that is true.
It gave you a great anticipation and a kind of excitement to think that one day maybe you'd go to Los Angeles or New York. Then you did go there, and you were thrilled to bits with it. Now, did it exactly match up to the image?
Yes. Well, Los Angeles more so, in a way. I first went to America when I was still a student at the Royal College of Art, and I had started selling pictures, and I'd also won some money, a prize for an etching. And so I got the ticket. It was £40 round trip to New York. And when I got to New York, I thought it was thrilling, absolutely thrilling. I'd always thought the Atlantic cost £1,000 to cross. I mean, anything that was way beyond me. And the life, then you arrive in a city in New York, unlike London, it never closes. It goes night and day, and you think, well, yes, there's 24 hours in a day. This is what it should be like. And I thought it was fabulous. But then when I went to Los Angeles, that was 2 years later, and I'd always wanted to go. Somehow I'd decided that's where I really want to go and work, and I'd never been. And people kept putting me off, saying, if you don't know anybody there, and I couldn't drive. And they said, if you can't drive and you don't know anybody there, you'll never be able to get out of the airport. And, you know, you're mad. Go to San Francisco and you can walk and you can do everything. And I said, no, I've got this into my head. That's where I want to go. And when I arrived there, it was really 3 times better than I thought it would be. It was,
in what way?
I was thrilled to be there. I remember I was picked up at the airport by a friend of a friend who'd rung him from New York saying, look, this English guy's arriving and he can't drive. Would you take him to a motel or something? And he took me to a motel in Santa Monica. And I thought, oh, this is it. Hollywood is near here and Los Angeles. And I just read an American novel called City of Night, if you remember it, by John Retchie, which has accounts of kind of low life in American cities. And I thought it was all wonderful and colourful and everything. But I wanted to get up to Hollywood and see what it was all like and see the hustlers and see everything. And I bought a bicycle to go there, because I didn't know how to get there. And of course it's about 16 miles from Santa Monica up and down like that. So I had to get rid of the bike after 2 days.
But didn't you set off and find you were going the wrong way?
No, well, you see, I decided, well, I obviously have to drive here. And so I rang this person up, Oliver he was called, who would pick me up at the airport, and I said, well, could you just show me where to go and see about a license? And he said, oh, I'll show you. And he had a truck, and, you know, it was automatic. You just press one button to go and one to stop. And he showed me how to do it. And in just applying for the license, I inadvertently got the whole license. I mean, I filled in a form that I should have read a book for or something and got the answers right. And they said, where is your vehicle? And you just drive around the block in California. And I got the license. I'd only been there 5 days in Los Angeles without knowing anyone. And so I went and bought the car. I had the money to get the car. And I got on a freeway and I daredn't get off. I mean, they're all driving very fast. And I went to Las Vegas because it goes 80 miles inland from Los Angeles and I couldn't make a turn. Then I saw a sign. It said, I don't know, 220 miles to Las Vegas. I thought, I'll practice in the desert. And that's what I did.
I wonder if you have any views about the relationship between the painter and the gallery, or the painter and the person who is his kind of impresario.
Well, yes, in a way. What can I say? For instance, in that movie, which I wasn't responsible for, called The Bigger Splash.
The one that was all about, it looked like it was home movies about you.
Yes. But in it, the portrait, for instance, of Casman, I remember people saying to me, oh, it was not a sympathetic portrait, or it wasn't good. He always seemed to be urging you to do this and do that, and he appeared to be nagging and everything, which, a matter of fact, he does not do. He doesn't actually do that very much. But nevertheless, I thought, they were looking at the thing in a very superficial way. And really, the role of a dealer or an impresario in that way is more creative than a lot of people think. I thought that criticism was kind of very, English in a way. They were saying it all sounds too commercial or something. But if you think of the people who always had to push artists, I thought of what was his name, the guy who had the theatre where the magic flute was going to be done, and they had to push Mozart and if he hadn't have pushed Mozart, it might not have been done that way. And so I think it's a bit glib to dismiss the role as saying it is simply a commercial thing. There's more to it than that. I mean, most people who deal in art do have a little feeling for it. I mean, maybe some don't, I don't know, but a lot of people who do feel about it, and they feel, generally, they tend to deal only in things they rather like or approve of aesthetically. I mean, oddly enough, since the pictures got more expensive, I haven't done as many. And it's not that when, you think, oh, well, then you've got enough money, you don't have to do as many. It's that I tend to reject more, because I did years ago. I always used to feel, I had to use good quality. If people are paying £200, you have to use good quality paint. You can't use cheap paint; it might fall off and things like that. I mean, you have to kind of. Maybe I'm just a bit puritanical and feel, they should get their money's worth in some way.
I don't know whether you ever do come in for criticism of the destructive sort, of the sort that says, that runs the pictures down at all. I can't remember anyway. But if you have, does criticism disturb you at all?
Well, generally, I would say no, because it doesn't really matter if somebody said, oh, they're terrible. I don't really believe them, because I don't really believe them when they say they're really good either. I mean, one has one's, I have my own opinions, and I think I know better than most of the people which is good, which is not so good. And of course, if you do a lot of work, the level of it is not always the same. It goes up and down.
What does your father think when he sees a drawing of himself by you?
Well, there's one drawing in the book where he has a watch on each wrist, and I just draw what is there. I was drawing him, and he's got slippers on, I remember. And when I'd finished the drawing, he said, I wish you'd said you were going to do the feet and the watches. You shouldn't put 2 watches on. I said, well, you've got 2 watches. Why have you got 2 watches on anyway? And he said, well, one of them was wrong. I suppose he didn't know which one, so he couldn't take it off. But he hated the idea of the slippers showing. He thought they should have been polished boots or something. I don't know, it's natural, I suppose.
What sort of pictures do you like of other people's? What do you like to go and see for fun, for pleasure?
I like looking at almost any kind of picture. It gives me thrills, but I must admit that Piero della Francesca gives me much more thrilling and deeper thrills than my own pictures, or I don't know. I'm a great fan and admirer of Picasso, which is a little bit kind of unfashionable in the sense of contemporary artists seem to ignore him a lot. I think he was the giant of the 20th century, really. I think his later paintings are better than people thought. In the 50s, when everybody looked at American painting, I think now, if you look at what Picasso did, which are those, the variations on Las Meninas, for example, there's an invention there that's just still rarer than anything else. And it never goes out of my head that this was, he was not the great artist. But
indeed, in some of the etchings you're doing at the moment, you incorporate elements.
Yes,
from
and I'm even
Picasso.
quoting Picasso, because...
What bits are you quoting?
Well, I'm working from this poem. The source of the poem was a painting of Picasso, and so I'm turning the poem back into a painting and etchings. And I'll just read the first bits, because that was the first bit. I mean, the whole thing is totally inspiring. It went, the man bent over his guitar, a shearsman of sorts. The day was green. They said, "You have a blue guitar. You do not play things as they are." The man replied, "Things as they are changed upon the blue guitar." And they said then, "But play you must, a tune beyond us, yet ourselves, a tune upon the blue guitar of things exactly as they are." It goes on and on. But and in the end, of course, he said the poem is as real as anything else. It's about poetry and reality. And I loved, when I read it, I loved the phrase, you do not play things as they are, because things as they are was what, as I said, in the 30s, the Philistine response to Picasso was, you do not paint things as they are. Well, there's no such thing as things as they are, which the poem says. It has really not much meaning. And in painting, where you use illusions, or you deceive the eye with all sorts of devices to make things look as they are. I don't know, the poem just triggered ideas in my head, so I started making drawings which are just inventions, which was a change for me from the past 2 years. So in the painting, for instance, there's things, the coloured line right at the top is simply a coloured line, so that's absolutely as it is. There's no illusion there. But then the water falling is illusionistic, and then you make references to other kinds of painting. The still life, for instance, of course it's not finished, but the orange, the pear, and the banana. The pear is drawn with lines that follow the form, so you know what the shape of a pear is, but you've never seen a pear that's got checks on it, so it's not like a pear is. And I mean, playing games like that seemed such fun to me. I just went on and on. I did lots and lots of drawings, and the other prints you saw. But painting is slower, so I've only started 2 paintings so far, but I'm going to do some more.
You got a title for the sequence of etchings?
Yes, I'd begun the etchings, then I thought of the title. I just thought I would call it The Blue Guitar by David Hockney, inspired by Wallace Stevens, who was inspired by Pablo Picasso. And the names could get bigger as they go down.
This book we've been talking about isn't an autobiography, really. Do you ever think of writing such a thing?
No, not really. I mean, it would take a lot of time, I think. I said it wasn't an autobiography because it would seem to me in an autobiography one would include a lot more things than are in the book. I mean, one's feelings at different times, and there would be more personal things in it. I mean, there are personal things in the book, but they're generally to do with what I was working on. I mean, they seemed to have some relevance to the work I was talking about. But I don't think really my life's very interesting to make an autobiography. I just sit and paint all day. I mean, what can you do with that?